So welcome to your STEP September talking circle. You'll see Tracy is out today, so she will be back with you next time, but I'll be filling in for her today, and we'll do our normal disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking a little bit about your APRs that you completed back in May. We're going to have some reminders about the end of the grant year and an opportunity to be able to chat a bit about a few things there. And then also some reminders about upcoming events, including getting your feedback on some scheduling for the new year as well. So as we get started, I'm going to unshare so we can just quickly do a few hellos as we go around, and I'll let Shala kick us off.
All right. Hi, everyone. I hope everybody is in good shape. We have a very busy September here where I am, and going into October, November, December. It's going to be busy. But I just wanted to let you know that for STEP grantees, your non-competing continuation was successfully processed. You should have received your grant award notification. If you haven't, let me know. I'll follow up on that. But you should be good to go as far as the year 2 is concerned. Pardon me. For some of you, there were some conditions and attachments we included, additional attachments. We can talk about that individually if you want, but take a look at your grant award notification. It tells you what, if you had, you were one of the ones that had conditions or additional attachments to your grant award notification. Just remember one thing about your indirect cost rate agreement for the coming year. That's your year 2. It has to be current and good for a year for you to draw down indirect cost funds. If you are not, there is a probationary period of, I think it's 90 days. I'm not sure, but you can't really draw down money until for indirect costs until you have an approved indirect cost rate agreement in place for the year 2 grant, STEP grant. If you have any questions, send me an email, or we can also set up calls to go over whatever questions you might have. But I just want you to be mindful that we're very busy with the new program, ARP Air, and we're trying to get it going as soon as possible. So if it's something you can wait until maybe November, I would really appreciate it. If not, I'll make time to do what I can to help you. Thank you.
And remember, if it's a simple question, you can always reach out to the OITA team. And if we're able to help while Shala is super busy in September and October, we're happy to. And we'll always let you know if it's a question that we have to refer up to Shala as well. All right, so I'm just going to go around in the order I see you on my screen. So we will start with Kara.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here today, as always, and learn a little something new. It's been a very busy September for us as well. So just chipping away at my never-ending to-do list.
Thanks, Kara. And Kara is with VTech, our grantee there.
Thank you. Mine is going crazy.
Next up, Esther.
Hi, Esther Shade with Connect Tribe. We are very busy as well. We just created our academic policy committee for our charter school.
Exciting.
We are very excited. We had our first meeting on, last week, and we have 9 members approved, and we're going to get organized. We have our next meeting on the 20th. So we're very excited, and they approved the charter school application. So we submitted that to the school board.
You're getting close.
Yes. And Carl, I believe, Carl is out hunting.
No worries. Thank you. Next up is Laura.
Hello, I'm Laura Revels. I'm with Chidiac Commute in Anchorage, Alaska, and we are in the process of wrapping up our no-cost extension for our STEP grant.
Nice. Thanks, Laura. Next is Lisa.
Hi, how you doing? Okay, I still have a problem with the mic on the computer. Good morning. Lisa K. Hoffman, Career Readiness Education Coordinator with the TEA, and happy to be here. And it's been a very, very busy time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And Lisa's with Blue Lake. Next up is Mark.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm associated with Laura in the Chugachman STEP program, and like she said, we are at the tail end of our no-cost extension. I'm pleased to say that one of the outcomes of this was to develop a tribal education code document, and thanks for Laura's hard work, we were able to get that to our administration, and they're bringing it to their board this month. And so we will have an established code, and we are looking forward to maybe some opportunity in the future to put that to work. And I think the other thing is that we've had an opportunity to share our STEP activities with our tribal member affiliates all throughout the region. About maybe 40 people attended our quarterly meetings, and Laura was able to give a very fine report to the tribal stakeholders that are within our 7 communities of our region. So we meet again for the last time with this for this STEP grant on next week, and Laura's going to give her final report to that tribal program there. So it's good to be here again, and it's good to hear Shala's voice again.
Thanks, Mark. And then Allison.
Hi there. We just submitted our final performance report on our FY19 STEP grant. It had been received a 1-year no-cost extension, and it finished in March, and then we had the 120-day reconciliation period and all that sort of stuff, and they extended the report till August 31st. We spent all but $1,251 or something like that. And we have a TEA now. We have the basic areas of our education code we need to proceed with growing our programs. So the general provisions, language of instruction, the basics of instruction covered. We have developed 20 pages of policy statements to run the programs that go along. So the code is like, here's the directive from the BOE, and then the policies then procedures that run the programs. So we have 20 pages of those that are currently in subcommittee that are being reviewed. So even though that grant's primary job is done, we've got MOAs, we've got a TEA, we've got all the different documents created. The work is ongoing. Just because you've finished your ed code does not mean that you're done. So much more work ahead of us on that, particularly as we develop these next programs. And our current STEP grant, which is the retain, recruit, retrain educators, and the modern youth internship academies, our primary goals. that's moving forward. Lisa has finished a script on a video, and I'm doing last minute retouches on it for a recruitment video that's going to go up on our website. And then we've got the applications for our program have been created, the acceptance and rejection letters have been created, and we started our community outreach to various people. At our board meeting last night, our Board of Education has Shala, you're putting something in the chat for me. Okay. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chat. So what we're also doing right now is all the contracts for our LEAs that are working with us on building the programs. Those got all approved. And so now we can move forward. Everything's done, and we can start year 2 with everything in place. So that's good. I'm excited.
Yeah, excited.
It's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yes, excited, but like it's like, oh my God, there's so much work to be done. I wish I had 2 more of Lisa and 2 more of me. And it's like, go. But yeah, so that's what we're up to. It's been a mad world.
Yes, I think
I'm with you, Allison. I understand where you're coming from. Trust me. I did put something in the chat box, but you don't need to respond right now. We can talk later. Okay.
Yeah, I just think the last thing that needed to be done was they did the indirect cost charge to our thing, and I'll have to double check with accounting, but there's very little left.
I tell you what, don't worry about it right now. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. So
okay.
great. Well, I think that is all the grantees on the call. We also, of course, have Beth and Olani from the TA team joining us today as well. So we will go ahead and just jump on in. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to chat. So the first thing, excuse me, as we've been looking at your APRs over the summer, we had an opportunity to review the APRs that you worked so hard on. And we know that we've gotten a lot of feedback from grantees that you'd like more feedback on your APRs. You'd like to get a little more review of those and some kind of constructive criticism or praise so that you can then turn around and use that in your next APR. So we are doing that. We've tried to be more responsive to that this year. We have gone through all of them as we normally do, but also been able to provide some feedback. So all of you are going to be receiving within the next week to 2 weeks, an email that will have, it's a fairly basic checklist providing you with some general feedback on the different parts of the APR you completed. But we wanted to talk through a few common things we saw in APRs that can help us as we move forward. So the first thing is on the cover page, just a reminder that your authorized representative does have to sign this, and it has to be your authorized representative as noted in G5. So that means you as the project director are not the one who signs this. You're not the authorized representative. If you're not sure who's listed there, you can find it in G5. You can reach out to your program officer. They can help you, but you want to make sure you're getting the right person to sign it. Sometimes that person leaves. We inevitably have turnover. That's why it's super important that as soon as you know that that person is going to be leaving, go ahead and get a letter saying, we're switching it out and who that next person will be. You email that into Shala, and it's a pretty quick and easy change. But it's only a quick and easy change if Shala knows there's been a change. So just make sure and keep her in the loop as you have any changes to your authorized representative. And that way you have the right person signing your forms. The next piece is talking about your executive summary. So by and large, everybody in this group really had great summaries in their executive summary, did a good job of really talking through all of the different things that you'd been working on in the first 6-7 months of your project when you completed that APR. One note is to make sure and also discuss the challenges. I think we've all agreed in our previous talking circles and kind of shared around some of the challenges that folks are encountering. Make sure to share those in your executive summary as well. Those are important things to kind of denote as you're putting that together. But overall, really good executive summaries. The next piece is talking about your section A. And in case in between APRs, if you just black out and try to forget what each of these sections are until the next one, section A is the one where you report on your GPRO measures and your project measures. And it has that nice nifty chart at the top that looks like as you see on the slide here, and then gives you a space down below for your explanation of progress, which is your narrative explanation. So one of the things that we noticed with a number of grantees is that with the GPRO, you may have enjoyed tweaking the wording. Unfortunately, when you're doing your APR reporting, you have to use the exact wording of the GPRO measures. So that means you can't change the verb tense. You can't insert your program name. You can't insert your own personal goal. You just copy that GPRO wording exactly as it was shown in the NIA. If you're not sure, if you're like, I'm not 100% sure that I know the exact wording, reach out to us at the TA team and we can help you make sure that you know exactly what the exact wording is for the GPRO. And we also go over that in the APR webinar that we did back in the spring, so you can also catch it there. So when we think about the GPRO, the one piece we saw was the exact wording. The other was everyone wanted to put something in this ratio for target. Remember that when we're doing our GPRO reporting, literally the only quantitative data that you put in this chart is your actual performance ratio. So that's the only quantitative piece you complete for that. Now, on the other hand, you have your project measures. Your project measures are your own, so it has your own unique wording based on your project. However, now that you've done your first APR, that will be your wording each year moving forward. You won't change it anymore. So you can always go back to your past APRs and just cut and paste it because you can't make any edits to that at this point. Now for your project measures, you do want to report two ratios, a target, whatever your goal is, and your actual, whatever actually happened. So that's the biggest difference between your GPRO and your project. So I would say by and large, most of you had the project under control, but with the GPRO, there was a little elaborating on the wording and sometimes wanting to include that target ratio. So just some reminders with that. Now, the next piece is your explanation of progress. So remember in section A, up at the top, you have the chart for your quantitative data. Down at the bottom is where you can then elaborate on that, and you're expected to elaborate on that. So remember that you're to talk about how you're defining that measure. So for instance, sometimes we were reading the quantitative and maybe the quantitative said 15 out of 16, but then when we were reading the explanation of progress, it never really explained what the 15 of 16 was. So make sure that that explanation of progress explains your quantitative data. So how are you getting that ratio? What do those numbers actually represent? Talk about what data is actually being tracked. So how are you tracking that measure? Whether it be a GPRO measure or a project measure, how are you tracking that? What data are you collecting? How are you collecting that data? And then finally, talk about the different actions that you've taken and activities you've implemented that pertain to that particular measure. So for instance, it's the one asking how many teachers have been recruited or retained due to your project. Talk about the things that you've actually done to recruit and retain teachers. What are those different activities you've done in order to achieve this? Or for some of you, you might have been reporting 999s or 0/1s. So at that point, you're talking about what you're going to be doing. Okay, so just making sure that we're giving nice, robust explanations of progress. Then section B, everyone's favorite section, talking about budget. Everyone loves to discuss money. So in the budget section, remember that this area asks you to complete the narrative in your section B form, and then to complete the optional budget expenditure form, which is an Excel spreadsheet, just one page, pretty easy layout. Now, it is, as it says, an optional budget expenditure form. So that means that if you want to provide all of that information in your own format, you can. I'll say most grantees don't prefer to go that route because it's more work, because you're having to come up with a way to share all of that exact same information versus just using the form that already has it. So I think all the grantees, by and large, choose to use that form. The one thing that we noted with some folks is a little bit of a confusion between the optional budget expenditure form, which is what you use to report on your APR, and the optional budget revision form, which is what you use typically in that October to November timeframe each year to revise your budget, or anytime throughout the year, you can send it into Shala for revisions. So just make sure that the title of your document is the expenditure form, not the revision form. All right, and actually, before we get all the way there, any questions on the things that we've kind of shared about the APR and some of the general feedback? All right. And of course, we'll do reminders and things before the next APRs are due. I know some of you are completing FPRs for your 2019. These are still great reminders for your FPRs. These things still stand true there, but we'll definitely do some reminders before we head into actual APR season. But we wanted to just kind of give you some of that general feedback of what we were seeing and a heads up. Then, like I said, in the next week to 2 weeks, you'll get that feedback form. And that's a nice thing to be able to just keep with your APR stuff, so that then when you go to do your next APR, it has lots of great reminders for you specific to your project. All right, so let's move to a couple of end of year grant reminders, and Shala touched on some of these at the beginning as well. So the end of your 2020 STEP grant fiscal year is September 30th. So remember that that's the last date that you can expend your year one grant funds. Any funds expended after that are considered year two expenditures. So reminder there. That's also a great time to remind your budget office, have you finished drawing down all of our year one expenditures? Now you can do a drawdown after September 30th. You know, maybe you expended something on September 30th, so they need to draw it down on October 1st. That's fine, but nothing can be actually expended after September 30th from your year one funds. Next up, just a reminder that if you reported 999 in any of that section A, then we will be asking you to update that this fall. As all of you probably denoted when you were writing your various things, a lot of times we don't have the information because your grant year is not over yet. So you don't necessarily know the final answer for some of those measures. So we will be reaching out to you. So just a heads up that as you're wrapping up September, look back at that APR, look at those things that you marked 999 and go ahead and be getting that information together, because we are going to be reaching out for you to update that. And then finally, as Shala said at the top of the hour, you have your new GANs, you have your new grant award notifications. Remember that only your project director is going to be able to see that. So if you're not the project director and you need that new GAN, reach out to your project director and have them download it out of G5 for you. You should have also received an email, but the email doesn't actually contain your GAN. It just lets you know, hey, you have a GAN ready in G5. Only through G5 can you actually access that. So make sure, go ahead and get that, take a look at it, make sure to denote your year two award, and make sure that that year two award matches what you were expecting year two to be. Nothing worse than getting into year two and realizing your budget is not what you thought it was. Okay, so make sure, these are just the things to check now while you're thinking about it. Make sure it's got the right project director on there. It's got the right contact info for you. Make sure it's got your level of effort correct, particularly if you work on multiple Department of Ed grants. Remember that even though You may work well over 40 hours in a given week. Your level of effort cannot total more than 100%. So if you're 0.5 FTE on 3 grants, I believe you, you're spending that amount of time, but you can't have that on paper. So everything's got to total out to just 1 FTE. So those are really good things to check just at the top of each year when you get the new GAN. And then as Shala mentioned, you may have some new conditions on your grant. So don't just read that top part that has the fun information of how much money you're getting. Keep reading down through all the long print and see, are there any conditions that you have? Maybe there's something about needing to update your indirect cost rate. Maybe you need to turn in some updated paperwork. Most of the time, these are not super challenging conditions, but they are really important for you to read and be aware of and take care of to keep your grant in good standing. So check out all of that stuff. And then know that we'll be touching base as we head into the new year about the opportunity to turn in any year 2 budget revisions. Any questions about wrapping up this grant year as we head into year 2? All right. Okay, so as we think about actually both things that we've been discussing, we wanted to have an opportunity for some sharing that really relates to both pieces. So as we start the new year, many of you are heading into a little bit more implementation heavy year. A lot of year 1 had to do with planning, getting things situated, getting things set up, people hired, programs started. And so for most of you, this second year has a lot more implementation heavy to-do list items. So I know that's part of why a lot of you are so busy this September, is getting all of that ready to ramp up as we head into year 2. One of the things to be thinking about as you do that, not to add to your to-do list, but just to be mulling, maybe discussing with your team, is how are you now going to be measuring and collecting the evidence, the data that you need to report on all these things that you're now going to be implementing? So for instance, and I'm actually going to pop up your GPRO measures because I think that's a nice little visual to help. And as a reminder, this wording here, this nice print, this is your GPRO wording. So if you're trying to figure out if you used the appropriate GPRO wording on your APR, this is that wording we're talking about, word for word. We just copy it from the NIA and put it in a pretty picture. So as you're looking at this, say the number of education programs that you directly administer. How do you plan on measuring that? What will make something count as an education program? And how are you going to have data to show that when you start reporting? Same thing for a teacher recruited or retained. So as you're thinking about that, what will count as you having recruited or retained a teacher? You know, how are you going to count that as you then start to think about collecting that data? So I'm curious, you know, does anybody feel comfortable sharing? We can just start here. We'll start with A. We'll do A and B together. Capacity building activities, either by you, the TEA, or that you're receiving from the SEA or LEA. How do you plan on measuring and documenting that? Yeah, go for it, Allison.
Well, we're using our calendar and our events scheduled. So last year there were none or 1, and this year there'll be 1, 2, or 3. So we'll have that. We'll have sign-in and registrations from each one of those meetings. And if I receive the other funding that I have that will pay teachers stipends to attend training that was offered by the TEA, we'll have all the documentation of stipends paid to teachers that attended the training. So that's how we would document capacity building activities by the TEA, is whether they've been published events and then attendance at those meetings. Same goes the other direction for activities by the LEA, same kind of scenario. Same with the education programs. Last year, we had the Pathmakers Mobile Makerspace program that was under contract with HCOE. They're an LEA and they were managing it. This year, their contract has been greatly reduced. The teacher has been hired by our TEA and we're taking over the management of that program, the Family Maker Nights, all of that. They're hosting it on their website for us because they had that all set up, but we've devised the themes, we're taking care of the supplies, we're making, so all the things that the previous contract had covered under them, I can show a difference between their contract was 135,000 and now it's 35,000. And we've hired a person. So I'm just looking, we compare from last year to this year, and then the documents we would have would be the contract comparison, and then the recruited teacher would be the job description that we had to create, as well as all of her hiring paperwork documents that we recruited a teacher. And then any training we send her to, a part of the retrained stuff, we would document that in the same way. We have a form that you have to fill out to travel or attend training. And so we have a documentation of any teacher training or forms in that manner. That's how we're going about doing A, B, C, and D.
Perfect.
And same with work-based learning experience programs for students. We've got documents. They've got to enroll in the class. I've got to get them signed up with whoever they're working for, either Lake Manchuria, the WEOT tribe, whichever organization they're working for. So I'll have work permits for the students. I'm going to have all that documented. There's tons of paperwork to document all of this.
Yeah, no shortage of paperwork. Yeah. And
So,
so I think that
I'm
starts
sorry.
a great, oh,
Sarah, this is
Yes.
Sean. I just noticed something. I know this is for the 2020 grantees, but we do have, I know Mark is a 2019 grantee. Mark, if you're on and you can hear me, this doesn't apply to you. This is not for 2019, what they're reviewing here, step GPRO measures. I just don't want any confusion because I think Mark is wrapping up his 2019 grants and I just want to make sure he doesn't think that he's responsible for what you're covering here. Mark, if you're on, let me know if you have any questions about this. You can bring it up now. Thank you.
yeah, I know Mark and Laura are both here from Chagashma in the 2019 grant. So yeah, the APR stuff, all pertinent, but yes, these are the GPRA specifically for the 2020 grantees. All right, so yeah, Allison brought up a lot of good ways that she's documenting all of these things. One thing I would kind of also think about as you're thinking about, you do have multiple ways that you're able to document each of these, is what will then make it count for your quantitative data. So for instance, I know you may be holding certain trainings and you said then you'll also have your attendance. I don't wish this upon your training, but I've had this myself where I had a wonderful training with fabulous content planned out and then no one came. So will it count? Are you going to count it towards your quantitative data if class was offered, everything was set up, but no one chose to participate? Will that count as a thing? So these are things for you to kind of think about now so that when you get to your APR, and you can always say in your explanation of progress, we offered 6 trainings and unfortunately one of them had no attendees. So we only had 5 that we considered completed capacity building activities. So that's why we offered the 5. That's where that explanation of progress is really handy, because just a ratio doesn't really tell the story of your program. That explanation of progress is so important with that piece. Yeah, Lisa, I see your hand up.
Thank you so much. So the question I have is that with the R3E part of the grant I'm under, I'm going to be setting aside time in my schedule to meet with these individuals. Now, my goal is to, have, to speak with them briefly and so on and so forth. I'm assuming that would need to be tracked. But say if someone, I set aside an hour for Mr. Smith, would that also have to be counted as well? You know, say if Mr. Smith doesn't show up to his time to talk to me about the program, does that still need to be measured?
Yeah, and I see Allison shaking no. So,
Okay,
you know,
thank you.
yeah, and that's part of the thing is some
Sorry.
of it is going to be a little bit subjective to each of your projects. And the important thing is to talk about it, make that determination, and then stay consistent.
Right. And I think it goes along with Sarah, when you were saying that you could set everything up and then they don't show up. So it's the same kind of thought. It's like we set up with 12 different people to come and meet with Lisa for recruitment, but only 11 of the 12 showed up. So we have 11 successful recruitments out of 12 is what I would count. And then we could have one that was incomplete, unsuccessful, whatever. We haven't come up with that name yet of a person who is incomplete. And then we could always tag them for follow-up in we have a continuous improvement process, plan, do, check, act. So when we come back to our checking, we go, oh, this person didn't show up, follow up with them, that kind of thing. But we haven't gotten there yet. That's Lisa's asking a brand new question, but it's good. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah. And it's these conversations that are super helpful. Yeah, Shala.
Yeah, Sarah, I just want to mention something here. This is a very good example. And thank you, Allison, for bringing it up. If, for example, if you have something set up for 12 people who won't show up, all 12 won't show up, you need to explain why that is in your explanation of progress. It's not usually something kind of mundane. If none of them show up, then there is a reason for it. It could be quite legitimate why they didn't show up, but you need to explain that. It could be one of the challenges. You could label it as a challenge or something in your report and kind of propose how you try to amend it later and, you know, improve on, I don't know, communication with the folks who didn't show up and so forth. Now, if you have 12 people and out of 12, you have 8, 9 who show up, that's fine. You know, there are 2, 3 who didn't show up and you can, you know, find out on you, but you have some rate of success in having at least 8 or 9 showing up. But I just wanted to draw distinction between none showing up versus some showing up. And if none show up, then you still have to explain why that happened.
Yeah, and that really goes back to how vital those explanations of progress are.
I also wanted to share with you, we had a similar situation coming up when we were trying to work on the building activity, capacity building activities of the done by the TEA or by the LEA. And we're trying to schedule, we're calling it the Intertribal Education Coordination Meeting this September the 21st. And we were going to have an in-person meeting here on the Blue Lake Rancheria. 9 of our neighboring tribes were going to come, as well as school districts. And it was going to be a huge meeting because we have a lot of space and we're like, we're all vaccinated, yay, you know. Then the Delta variant started happening and people started canceling. I mean, we really can't go, blah, 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 da, da, da. And so we had to shift gears. So we're changing it from 1 day long, like coordination conference kind of thing to 8 individual 1-hour Zoom sessions on very specific topics that were going to be on the agenda. So because people started canceling and I'm like, we're never going to achieve our capacity building goal if people keep canceling because they don't want to meet in person due to COVID. So I would encourage everybody, don't be discouraged by people canceling or not coming to your recruitment or training or capacity building. Just put on that different hat and shift gears and think of another way to make it happen. And that's what we ended up having to do. So,
yeah, I think everybody's learning to be much more creative, much more flexible in how we do things to make it work. Great. Anybody else given any thought to how you're going to measure any of these for yourself or have any questions about how to measure any of these? And I know, Esther, your group is the only one that is working on opening a charter school. And that one will definitely have a lot for you to track as you just track each of those actions that you're taking in order to get to your end goal of an open charter school?
Yeah, we have different, for example, we had so many people that wanted to be involved in the charter school. I think we had like over 40 people originally that just wanted to be involved. And so one way, what we did was create these 8 teams so they can have input into the charter school. For example, we have the elder engagement team, the culture and curriculum team, the culture and instruction team, mission and vision team. And we met with these groups of people. I think we had twice a week through Zoom, and then reconvene every 2 weeks with the whole group.
Yeah, that's great. And definitely a nice way to manage having almost too many people to have a really constructive conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, just because, you know, we can sit and talk forever, but we wanted to get somewhere. So that's why we created these teams to help us create the goals for the charter school.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. All right. Any other ways that folks are measuring or questions on how we're going to look at these different measures throughout the year? And it can even be, if you have one of the, a question about one of your project measures. I don't have all of those up on a nice screen for you, but you're welcome to ask about any of those too. All right. Well, then our second discussion question is, so as you move into this year 2 full of activity, what topics, issues, challenges are really top of mind? What are those things that maybe you hope we can have some really focused conversation around in the coming months, or challenges that you're hoping we can bring some resources to the table for you? Anything that's coming to mind as you head into this busy year 2? And I know one of the things that had come up earlier, and I think we had revealed this at our August one, but I want to make sure, is that we are working on a data sharing agreement template. So that will be forthcoming soon. That's something that we're making that can be utilized, not just by STEP grantees, but honestly by all OIE grantees, because that's something that we've seen as a need across the field. So that's definitely something that your feedback was really helpful in letting us know that that would be something that some resources would be useful. So stay tuned, that will be out quite soon. Any other things coming to mind? Or are we too busy and you've yet to think about that? You're like, I don't even know what I need because I'm in the middle of my to-do list. I understand that. I do want to encourage you that, as you're going through your to-do list and you're working on projects with your team, when you have those questions or something pops up and you're like, oh, I wish I had XYZ, or, oh, I wish I had a group that I could discuss this dilemma, shoot us an email. It can literally be just one quick sentence. Don't feel like you have to make it all frilly with how are you doing. You can just shoot one sentence. We will not take it poorly, and we'll know that's quick feedback for the next talking circle or for potentially an upcoming webinar. Feel free to shoot those ideas and questions over as they do pop up, because I know sometimes then by the time you get to the talking circle, they're not necessarily top of mind. Or even more likely, if you're like me, this afternoon, maybe 3 or so hours after this, you'll be like, oh, I know I have a thing, but we're no longer on Zoom together. So do not worry. You can send those in at any point. We welcome that information, because we want to make sure we're providing good, useful information for you and using your time wisely.
I just wanted to share that I have another it seems like every single district we work with wants a different data sharing agreement that we have to go back to the drawing board on. I got one major one from the Humboldt County Office of Ed that we've been using with all of our other districts, but Northern Humboldt Union High School District was like, no, use this one. So I do have another one if anybody would like to see it or borrow it. I tried to put it into the chat, but it gave me some sort of error. But I will send it to anybody who would like to see it so they can use it as an example.
Yeah, and if you want, you can, if you want to send it over, I can send it out to the group even. Because yeah, I don't know why the chat's not participating today. Technology. All right, we'll keep mulling. And while you're doing that, I will share a couple of things. So one thing I wanted to share is that as we move into year 2, we are, of course, going to continue the talking circles. What's going to change, though, is they're going to move from being monthly talking circles to quarterly talking circles. So just that way, when you see the new calendar invite, because you probably have not noticed because you're much too busy to be analyzing your October calendar at this point, but we sent out the calendar invite for the STEP talking circles earlier in the year through the end of year 1, but then they end. So you'll be getting a new calendar invite for your grant year 2 talking circles. So you'll note there that they are going to be quarterly. And the reason there's a question mark next to October is I would like your feedback. So normally we hold our talking circles the second Wednesday of every month. That seems to have worked well for most people. However, the second Wednesday in October is the 13th. That is the first day of NIEA's convention. I know some of you may be planning to attend, some of you may not. And so I wanted to really just ask before assuming that that would still be a good day. We can move that one in October. The plan would be to leave it, on Wednesdays moving forward. But if we need to move just that first one, because many of you are going to be at NIEA, I'm happy to do so. So I'm just going to kind of go around with the folks that I know are on as far as grantee groups. So for Blue Lake, is the 13th still okay? Or you're going to probably have a conflict that day?
The 13th of September?
October.
October. Okay. Wow. That's a Wednesday. That's I'm at the NIE conference in Nebraska that whole entire day.
Okay. And that's what I knew a number of people would be, but just double checking before I assumed that everybody might be tucked away there. All right. So then checking over with Knick, are y'all going to be at NIEA as well?
I don't know.
Okay. That is okay. No worries.
Okay.
What about for VTech?
I am not attending the conference. I don't think anybody is, so that should still be a good day for us.
Okay. And then we don't have Mashpee on today, so we can check with them. If we were to move it, would y'all prefer the Wednesday before or the Wednesday after? We can do whichever one is better for you. So that would put us on either Wednesday the 6th or Wednesday the 20th. And if either is okay, that's fine too. I can just draw one out of the hat for you.
I'm going to vote for the 6th just because I have a Board of Education meeting on the 19th. And I'm going to be like,
you'll be recovering.
Well, right. And all the action items from the board meeting and all that stuff that comes out. Yeah.
All right. So I've got one vote for the 6th. Anyone else have any preferences?
I'm going to say the 6th as well, because VTech has a board meeting on the following Wednesday. So I don't want to be in meetings all day either.
All right.
It's going to be a long day.
No worries. Okay. So it sounds like we'll do October 6th and then we'll move back to our normal normal second Wednesday. So I'll send out those calendar invites, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. So when you got it, you weren't thinking something's wrong with my calendar invite. It's not showing every month. Nothing's wrong. We're moving to that quarterly. However, we will continue to have monthly office hours. So you'll see for September, it's September 23rd. We will continue to have office hours every single month. So even in those months when you don't have a talking circle, you can always reach out to Shala. You can always reach out to the TA team. And then you can always pop in if you want that one-on-one FaceTime to office hours. So you will still have other opportunities each and every month. Then the other things that are coming up this month to look at for your busy September. Next week, we have our Trauma and Resilience in Tribal Communities series. That is a 2-part series. So you're going to have one session on Tuesday, and then you're going to have one session on Thursday. So I've had some questions about, can I attend either or? You're welcome to just attend one of the two, but I just want to be forthcoming that particularly if you come to the first one and not the second, you're going to miss kind of the action piece. And if you come to the second one and you didn't make it to the first, you're going to be a little bit lost having missed that context from the first. They will be recorded. So if you think that you want to attend one and you're not able to make the other, still feel free to, and I will get that recording up just as soon as humanly possible so that hopefully you can watch it before the other one. But it is a 2-parter. That is open to anybody on your team. So if you have someone else on your team that doesn't normally attend, say, the talking circles, but you think that they would be interested in this particular webinar, they are welcome. There's no restrictions on who can attend that. So feel free to share that with your other team members. And then we have the mental health first aid coming up the following week. That is only for those that have been pre-registered. So pre-registration has closed for that, but remember that it is occurring on September 20th or 21st. Any questions on events today? Oh, good. Okay. Well, then I'm going to pop up our wrap-up poll as we finish up here and ask if you have the 2 minutes to knock out that poll that should have appeared on your screen. It is super helpful for us as we use that information for future events. While you're doing that, I'll also pop up our contact info. I think most of you have our contact info pretty well down by now, but just to make sure that you have Shala's email address, the email address for your TA team. And then if you have a Twitter and you haven't started following, lots of great content going out on Twitter every day. Lots of interesting things that they're sharing over there from all across the field. And with that, if there's not any other questions, any final questions? All right. Well, then we will go ahead and wrap up. I'm happy to stay on if anybody had some questions that they wanted to ask, but maybe not for the full group. And then we will see all of you, if nothing else, on October 6th for the first talking circle of your new year 2. So have a wonderful rest of September. I know it's all very, very busy, but lots of great things going on in all of your programs. So have a great rest of the Wednesday and rest of the month.